The
and I love
bonding
that.
chemical.
That's what I would also describe as the spirit.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
spiritual experiences that I feel are oxytocin.
These chords in front, it gives it cool depth of field.
Husey Bear.
My question.
I think the core's coming across the face, though, man.
I hate it.
I agree. I agree. And my self-esteem has never been lower. I'm just joking. I actually
I've been
agree.
exposed.
Man, don't look at me. Don't look at me. I actually don't think the Christopher Nolan movies are that great. I know I'm in the minority here. That's why I
Yes.
prefaced it that way.
Really, dude?
Wow.
I'm so stoked for Tenet. I could not be more excited.
It's gonna be
I'm
amazing.
joking because that was a Key and Peele reference.
Oh,
that
sorry.
sorry,
okay.
guys. So
I was lost on that one.
yeah, it's okay. So my question was, in regards to truth and spirituality, given your upbringing and given what you know and don't know, what would you prefer to be?
You
the
want us to
truth?
articulate
The
our
truth.
confirmation bias?
Yes,
Yeah.
essentially that's what I mean.
Cool.
I'm sure maybe a lot of us would say the same thing, but I have a sneaky suspicion there'll be some variances.
Got it. Yeah, so I think that for me, my most spiritual experiences are those that pertain to love. So, like, my children, my wife, any experience I have where I serve someone else, like kind of, I don't know if you guys have heard of elevation emotion. I feel like when I benefit other people, I really have positive experiences with that.
That's what we call the neurotransmitter oxytocin.
Yes, and it's fantastic,
The
and I love
bonding chemical.
That's what I would also describe as the spirit.
that. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
spiritual experiences that I feel are oxytocin.
And they feel great.
Which, if anybody wants to know what that is, Google Simon Sinek 4 chemicals, and there's a video about the whole 4 chemicals that.
And
are-
Simon
cause
Sinek
happiness.
is a very intelligent man.
Very.
If you have
He has
listened to
certain-
his
he
book.
At least he
certainly
comes
has some
across as one.
He
Well,
certainly
he
has
could
some
be
good
just a really good
qualities.
actor.
My question is, why is he the most or very intelligent man?
Because
Because it's
maybe
not
he's-
what is he intelligent with, nor is it how is he intelligent with it, but it's why. This
I
is a Simon Sinek reference.
Oh, dang it.
Sorry.
Start with why the book. Okay, sorry. You lost me.
It's all good.
I
Start with
feel-
why.
I feel- yeah.
Roundabout way.
So anyway, I have nothing else to add to that because I want to be short with my response. But in fact, I was telling Jill just recently.
Yes.
Yeah.
You motioned towards me.
I'm-
I was telling Jill.
I was
the
telling
other day,
Jill.
Am I talking
Sorry.
to Jill right now?
But that I try to have these experiences with God or with Jesus, right? And what's really hard for me about that is I have experiences with my kids and with Jill and with you guys, and these experiences impact me. And to me, I call that Christ. You know what I mean? I call that there's no, because for me, I don't have, this may come across as bad. I don't have extremely intimate. I haven't had yet extremely intimate experiences with Christ in the way that I have when a child is with me and I'm having an experience with them, or in the way where I'm giving my wife a hug, or receiving forgiveness from someone that I hurt, or whatever it is. So I don't know, this is off topic of truth a little bit, but my point is my spiritual experiences or whatever come from experiences with people, with love, with service, compassion, empathy, all of those things.
And is that what you would prefer?
I love
To
that.
continue.
I love that. I really do love the human experience, especially when we're empathizing, working together, trying to work out the kinks of life, because life is hard. I like authenticity so freaking much. I do not the way I used to be is frustrating to me now, because I would often pretend to tear up because I thought that was what I was supposed to do. And that wasn't like sometimes, like when I would bear my testimony, I would, just to get to make sure that people knew that, wow,
Can I say something on that point real
Yeah.
quick?
Yeah.
When I tear up generally during a testimony, or when I have in the past, it's generally been about something having to do with me being great. And I just wanted to throw that out there. and so like I've
That
never
can
said
also
that
be a
before.
powerful experience.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
but like it usually has to do with something about
It's
like I see myself in this light of kind of glory, and it's not necessarily that I'm emotional about the things that
thing.
I'm actually saying. It's more of like about
that you're seeing
that
yourself
I'm seeing myself
positive.
positively,
Yeah.
and that I don't know if that's good or bad, but
Yeah. Yeah, I like it.
it's being accurate.
Could you repeat the question? I think I have.
In regards to truth and what is in existence, what would you prefer the truth to be overall? Like, kind of the end goal.
So at the end of this life, you get to the afterlife and you find out the answer. What is the answer that you want to hear at that point?
I think the thing that's been going through my mind is where I stand on what faith is, why it's important, is that I want to expose myself to as much learning as possible, all the while acknowledging that in life, whether you're trying to or not, you are putting your faith / trust in something. And so I think interestingly enough, another word for faith is literally confirmation bias. I think that confirmation bias has its shortcomings, of course, because you're making assumptions that are kind of preferential, which I mean is in the nature of your question. Like, how would you like this to come out? I think that I think that in itself is kind of an important thing from what we've talked about today for myself. Also, I know that this isn't related, but just hearing everybody talk and the way that they've talked about their thoughts, I tend to be a very streaky person in almost every imaginable facet of life.
Gets naked a lot, runs around fields,
Yeah,
that kind of stuff.
I tend to be in the wind, wild and free. No, what I mean by that is that like I've had seasons in my life where I saw something troubling or had a challenge of faith or enjoyed learning a subject and would dive into it full throttle. And then I'd have long seasons of like inactivity of any kind, like just kind of floating through life. And I think after hearing everybody share their thoughts, like I definitely feel behind in study.
No.
And
You can use the word ontological in a sentence. So
that's only because I Googled it about 5 minutes ago.
Isn't that a tautologism?
it's
tautology.
I found out what a tautology is. There's two different expressions of it, I guess.
What's
Not
the
important.
Tangent.
Basically, what I'm trying to get
Ontology,
at,
the
what
word
I'm
ontology.
what I'm trying to get at is I admire so much every person here, their own individual pursuit of knowledge or whatever you perceive as knowledge. So
Yeah.
we got epistemology, the study of the study of. Well, the thing that's funny is I looked up ontology, and ontology is the study of what is.
yeah.
So like reality, and then epistemology is the study of knowledge and how to get there, whatever. And so I'm just excited. I feel like this will probably be something that kind of throws me into another sprint, into another streak of like, well, they were talking about something that I don't feel confident about, that I don't feel like I have a strong awareness of it, and I'm not going to be able to have an intelligent conversation unless I do some homework. But I
I think we can all say that, though. I
know,
feel like we are all equally understudying in areas where the other are studied.
Yes, I agree.
And so, but then putting all that aside, I think, like, in theory, if we had an eternity, if we had forever to learn, we'd never get there. I think that whether that's because of a belief that a mortal cannot understand all things, or if like I truly believe deep down that there's this eternal pursuit of awareness.
Nice.
I don't know.
I like it.
That I do not know. But I will say that I think that there is one thing that I'll just say this is an opinion. And I know this is again out of order from what you were even asking for. But I think that there is so much derogatory or condescending perception on faith. All the while, I think it's because faith is so commonly attached to religion and belief or dogmatism.
Right.
And it's like considered this stubborn, like faith is what gets you in trouble because you're using an antiquated structure. And the world is changing, and we're changing, and we're evolving, and we know how we were wired before. We know how we can be rewired, and so where does that lead us? We don't know. Objectively, I think the science is interesting. Like you talk about genetics and epigenetics, and like all that stuff is so interesting. Like, and I actually, sorry, I'm really getting distracted now because now I'm thinking of Men in Black 1. Agent K is sitting.
That's what you should be thinking about.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
What's the name of the actor? Tommy Lee.
Tommy Lee Jones.
Tommy Lee Jones. He's sitting there and he makes reference to what the world is known at different things, which I think relates to our pursuit, our epistemological pursuit. So he says, hundreds of years ago, the world knew that the earth was flat. He's like, 50 years ago, we knew that there was no other intelligent life out there.
And now we know the earth is flat again.
Yeah. and then he says something, and then at the very end he says, imagine what we'll know tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of like it kind of robbed the word of its typical meaning. I think that people in almost any context when we use the word know, maybe we've been using it very irresponsibly.
I think so.
I
did.
strongly think so. In fact, I know so.
So I want to clarify. So what you're saying is you would prefer that there are some crazy aliens out there playing marbles with our galaxy.
Dude, that bit has had an impact on my
Yeah.
cosmological view more than I can even articulate.
If I could compare that,
I haven't thought about it
scene,
even a second time.
that little clip, I felt the spirit just as much in that as I did in anything
That's
in
where
church.
I was going, and that is.
I'm
and
dead
I was
serious.
Gonna say that, like, when I feel the spirit, like, I genuinely, I don't feel as readily oxytocin or the feelings of love, and that has been a source of embarrassment and shame for me in much of my life. In that, when somebody's crying in the room, like, I don't like feel immediately. Like, is that empathy or sympathy? When you
well, sympathy is when
Empathy, I think.
sympathy is like when you can feel it, everything, and empathy is like when you're like,
Yeah.
I don't understand.
trying to relate.
but- yeah. So I don't feel either of those. It's confused me, and I think especially in the context of like sharing testimonies and stuff, it really troubled me because I'm just like, I feel nothing right now. I feel absolutely nothing, but everybody else is feeling something. Everybody is loving this right now.
If I'm being honest, though, I would pretend to feel things.
Yeah.
Now I don't, right? Like I've accepted the fact that in testimony meetings I don't feel anything.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I feel anger, but like when I do feel positivity or uplifted is when I'm actually having an experience with another human being.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
Yeah.
And I would say that I definitely feel like my spiritual, like because like I enjoy learning things, and I think we've all felt the thrill of, wrapping our heads around certain concepts, being able to talk about them and feel like we're doing it justice is a very satisfying experience, I think. But again, I would say that there's this other level of being or feeling or sensation that we put into, for now, the spiritual category, which I feel that mine is definitely much more a feeling of enlightenment. So I won't get emotional, but when somebody shares a testimony that
Spawns a new idea,
Yeah.
almost.
like that opens up a new perspective, like that to me is just like. But here's the thing: is again, I've experienced that in school where like I'm just.
I was gonna say I felt that at the tech summit today when a guy was speaking. I was like, man, he is nailing it. Like,
But it was
on the
different
head.
because it wasn't like oh, he's nailing what I already feel and believe, or she or whatever. It's like like something's happening right now. Like something is you feel. This is going to be so ugly for some people listening and watching this. Like just in terms of me trying to articulate
A spiritual experience.
Yes, because
Yeah.
it's probably so frustrating. For everybody, really, unless you're on the same wavelength and feeling what the person might be feeling. But I just
So will the audience smoke some weed and we can just
get on the same page.
Let's-
I think mushrooms would be a better choice. No, sorry. Now I've like just completely.
No, I
taken over.
derailed you. I apologize. You were explaining what
No,
you
just
feel.
that that's you were talking about how you feel it through love. I feel it through, I guess, enlightenment.
And as do I. Like
Yeah.
when I even now when I like read scriptures or something where I'm like, never thought about it this way, or like I still have an emotional response to things that where I feel uplifted, and still say in my mind, what is that? You know what I mean? What is that? And it could be chemical reaction, but I am also on the idea of like I believe in all possibilities.
Yeah.
Whether it's God or Jesus or the Spirit
Or
or
Buddha.
or whatever that is, it's a positive thing in my life, and
And
I'm
I
okay
like
with
it.
that. Yeah, I'm okay with that. I like that.
And then, but I mean, we can take any one of these stances though, and we could find the misapplied version of it.
Right.
You're like, because then you could say like drugs, like listen, like I take
Yeah,
this drug and
exactly.
it feels good,
Yeah.
so I'm gonna keep doing it.
Well,
Like,
it's
I seek after what feels good.
it's one and the same.
Hedonism.
It is one and the same,
And I
right?
would say-
What we are describing right now in terms of spirit, right? There's a couple of different examples going back to the chemicals, right, in the human body. Oxytocin is the spirit is the spiritual feeling of closely connecting with someone else, right? Sharing love, touching, right? That's why we're supposed to give 12 hugs a day, right?
12?
I think there's, I don't know, at least 12 hugs a day,
Depends
whatever
how
it is.
much you weigh.
Got to meet my quota.
Listen,
Now-
I know you don't want to do this, but
But
it's
I
good for both
need
of
it.
us.
Says I'm behind by.
Would you rather go to the
3
gym or just embrace me?
And then, so that is one feeling that is responsible for happiness, right? Which describes a lot of spiritual experiences. Now, the other one, exactly what you're talking about, is dopamine. What do most drugs do? They trigger dopamine response in the human body, right? We feel dopamine naturally when we have an aha moment, when we learn something new, when we achieve a goal. I mean, that's, yeah, what we're describing is a spiritual experience that happens. All essentially the correlation between the descriptions that we're describing here are, it is good, we like it, and it happens at certain moments and in certain circumstances. And
But I would also argue, like, that just because you have an explainable physical reaction, like, doesn't mean that is the only reaction. Like, I'm sure that they've done the tests, right? And you would know more about this than me. But, just because maybe you can measure a dopamine release. And I think, again, in talking specifically about dopamine, I think, because I was at BYU and was... I can't say studying with because that would make it sound like I was much more involved. But I participated in shadowing some testing in the neurological studies lab for a professor at BYU who was studying addiction specifically. And the reference to dopamine was that dopamine is kind of the anticipatory mental reaction that in an addict brain, it's actually the anticipation of executing the addictive or compulsive behavior
is more impactful than the actual
the
thing.
strongest the anticipation of it is the dopamine being released, and then when it's actually carried out, like, then the dopamine diminishes, and then that's kind of like the come down. Not sure exactly how that relates to our discussion right now, other than that it's definitely accepted that there are measurable, testable physiological responses to a lot of comparable things. But I would argue, stubbornly perhaps, that while you can prove that, maybe what we experienced, that there was dopamine or oxytocin or the other two released in that moment, we can't definitively say that was the only thing that was happening physiologically. Maybe there's a way to do a test that says,
and there's no way to explain that maybe there is a spiritual experience that we have, a true spiritual experience that manifests itself
through that.
through those
avenue.
two
And that's- that would be
neurotransmitters.
my point. Yeah.
I will say though, there's a difference in quality. There's some feelings, and it might be the same chemical, but that's being released. But I feel like there are certain connections, say between like a husband and wife, that feel different than the same chemical being released between, say, I don't know, like a pedophile and
Right.
somebody that
Right.
he's molesting, and it doesn't feel, I mean, it doesn't feel like, even if the same chemical is being released, that one is of the same quality,
Well,
as the
I would
other.
argue that those are just different chemicals.
Oh, they are different chemicals?
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe I didn't follow what you guys were just saying then.
I don't know if I did.
Well, so oxytocin usually is the neurotransmitter that we associate with love, with connection, right?
Genuine connection.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Well, maybe not even genuine connection, because they talked about, and again, this is maybe a biased source, but does anyone remember the talk from Elder Holland called "Of Souls, Symbols, and Sacraments,"
Mm-hmm.
where he references like sorry, I'm trying to add to what you're saying, but like,
Actually, you're not good. That bothered me that you just cut me off, but keep going.
shoot, well,
Honesty.
He's
that's
authentic.
real. I'm only wanting to say that sometimes I think that the oxytocin release is the result of our biological machinery. But I don't think that defines us as biological machines, which is a common philosophical debate, like about animals, morality, choice, humans, whatever. But in that talk, he basically says that, when people act immorally in terms of chastity and share intimacy with multiple partners, he says you're basically, and again, he's not a neuroscientist, he is a religious cleric, but basically describes the horcruxing of like you as a person, because your body can't help but have certain responses to the sexual cycle, and oxytocin is released, and you may have met that person 30 minutes prior or whatever, but your body's sending the signal like, hey, like we're together, like this is a match, this is you're meaningful to me. And it's interesting because have you guys Nikki Glazer, have you guys ever seen clips from her on YouTube?
Yes.
She's a very sexually themed comedian.
Got it.
And talked and has shared some experiences where she was, I guess you could say, a little loose. Talks about not having sex with somebody, that she's never hooked up with somebody sober, or that at least every time that she's tried to, it's been extremely awkward. And then also talks about like the ironies in like sexual liberty, and it's interesting because she's very sexually charged in how she talks, and that's kind of how. I mean, I'll admit, like I've watched something because I'm like, well, that's an interesting topic. Let's talk about this. But it's interesting because she also acknowledges that there are these like neurological, emotional consequences to sleeping with somebody. And I know she hasn't read that talk, but I'm sure that there again are studies behind that as well. But anyways, sorry, I
Guaranteed.
definitely took that for way too long.
What would I like to be true? That's not a question. I'm not really asking myself that question anymore. I really don't care. I mean, I know there's this thing that we call, confirmation bias, in which, we have a pre-existing outcome in which we want to happen. And I feel like I have no pre-existing outcome that I want to happen. I'm essentially just along for the ride, and that was 100% okay with me.
But I think that also reflects confirmation bias because, and I might not be applying the term correctly, but I mean, I believe that your confirmation bias is that this life will be a journey of learning for as long as you're here, and that at some point it will come to an end, and whatever happens, like we'll see it, and you're comfortable with having that approach, despite the fact that maybe Buddhism is right, and that you didn't do enough Buddhist practices to, again, this is like a Western view of religion, like that there was there were acts to be done, or covenants to be made, or codes to live by that would afford you the best opportunities in whatever happens, right?
Sure. I mean, so to answer your question, sure. Maybe I am not finding the answer because I'm not looking for it. And that's okay with me. I mean,
Right. No, you're at peace with that belief.
Yes.
Okay.
Mic drop.
I feel like you just cut me off like 3 times in a row, Zach.
Sorry.
Right in the middle of a comment. So yes, I don't know if I'll ever know based on what I know that I don't know, right? Try and make sense of that comment. Take you days. But I'm okay with that. And I understand what a happy life is. And I understand what things that I can do to live a better life based on research and science. And, there's so much good information out there about, how beneficial exercise and diet and serving other people, getting an oxytocin release, having personal relationships where we get that closeness, combined with minimizing the cortisol, the stress that we feel in our life through, social media and not being outside enough and, not having purpose and not having a tribe, right? And so I love the life that I have, and I am seeking out what makes a good life, and that's going to look a little bit different for everybody. And
No,
that's
it all looks
okay.
the same.
That's okay with me.
I love that.
My life's not perfect, but I love where I'm at. I love what I know. And if I'm being honest with myself, I feel a lot more meaning and joy in my life knowing that or accepting the possibility that this could be it. There could be no higher being guiding this experience, and I could die tomorrow, and that's okay with me.
Awesome.
So I'm gonna enjoy my life today. Spending time with you guys.
I missed it.
Oh, that's not going to look good on the camera.
Ooh,
No.
see that last little part makes me think that in practice, your faith, as say like a skill, is more developed than perhaps
Yes,
mine.
I am far better at faith and most other things than you are.
more like as almost, yeah, if you see it as a skill, it is good to accept what is and stay in the present moment, which is then it
Sam Harris 101.
right, but and then also Jesus 101 or Stoicism or Taoism, and so it really it seems to me like that's where the real religious or gospel oriented debate begins. Is let's all agree that good practice of faith is accepting what is, trying to stay here and now, and doing the next right thing in the moment. And then beyond that is, well, which teacher of that thing is
Teaching me best.
teaching me best, and perhaps is the most pure in it, his or her teaching.
Because there are a lot of kung fu masters out there, but they're not all the same.
Right.
Right, and you don't get the same
And might
results.
I add that even if it is the LDS Church, right, or Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, it can be still within that realm. You can still accept other truths. You know what I'm saying? Like other truths can still apply even if you're practicing in the LDS context. Which is the joy. Start yoga.
Nice.
Do you remember that soda commercial you did, or we planned out of you swimming across your pool?
That was high quality.
Sorry, I don't remember this, but
Sarcastic laugh.
I just got
Nothing
it.
makes you feel worse than a sarcastic laugh. Like someone's like,
So should we dive in and talk about why all of you are wrong and why I'm right?
I think we're wrapping it up actually. this has been
I
Eye
think
of the
that's
Storm,
good.
and it actually proves that four guys with different opinions can have quality conversations.
I hated
the
every
midst-
second of it because Zach kept interrupting me. Damn it!
If that wasn't a peak in the audio, I don't know what will be.
I still wanted to say more.